Week 8 in the Premier League, and this is EPL Insights powered by Pinnacle. Gareth Wheeler, and hey, take off my glasses here for a second. That's not Jake Osgathorpe over there. Andrew Beasley stepping up and stepping in for Jake, who's taking a well-deserved family vacation. Welcome back to the podcast, Andrew. How have things been for you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. And I think I had my best week of the season last weekend with my picks that I do for another website. So that's really good in profit for the season. That's good at this stage. So hopefully more of the same this week. But obviously, last week most of my picks were based on goals and not results, and that was just as well in light of sort of how a lot of the games went.
Andrew, so you're coming in hot. You're setting the bar exceptionally high heading into this week, and after a game week 6, where I don't think I'll ever be able to come out with a week like that again, 9 games, 9 profitable matches for me. Game week 7 provided some challenges. I think on the balance of it, there was some profit to be made if you were on the right side of the equation, because there was a lot of surprises. Both of the Manchester clubs lost for the first time on the same day in 10 years. City going to the Molineux, losing 2-1 to Wolves. United, after easily taking care of Crystal Palace at the Carabao Cup, they lost at Old Trafford, a place that used to be a fortress, not so much these days. Controversy in Liverpool losing to Spurs. Brighton absolutely destroyed 6-1 to Aston Villa. Luton Town coming away with their first Premier League victory. And Chelsea actually scored a goal. Actually, they scored twice after being mocked by Domino's Pizza ahead of that match in the West London derby against Fulham. Is there anything that in particular that stood out to you in terms of the betting market? I know your beloved Liverpool and VAR gone wrong yet again. That's been the story that's been dominating the airwaves of the week. I wonder if it's that or something else that has caught your eye.
I mean, obviously that was the most controversial game of the weekend, wasn't it? I don't think we need to sort of go over it too much, because obviously the conversations are going on continually, basically, since it happened. I personally thought Liverpool played really well. Very unfortunate not to take something from the game. I think if I were a Tottenham supporter, I'd be obviously pleased with the points, but I think be pretty disappointed with their performance, particularly against 10 men and then 9 men. I mean, I think it says a lot. Liverpool created more XG with 9 men than Tottenham did when it was 11 against 11. So that doesn't sort of paint their efforts in a good light. Manchester City as well. I mean, I don't think many people were expecting them to lose at Wolves. I certainly wasn't. I had both teams to score an over 2.5 goals, thinking, Man City probably win 3-1, something like that. The bet comes in, but of course it's 2-1 to Wolves. Interesting thing there, Manchester City didn't have any big chances as defined by Opta. Yeah. It's rare for them to do that. I mean, I think it happened twice in the whole of last season, once each in each of the 3 seasons before that, and it's already happened twice this season. Wow. Now, this doesn't mean all that much in the grand scheme of things, but it's something to watch for. Is that, are they having problems generating these good chances without De Bruyne to set them up, without Rodri and everything he brings to the side? And obviously we'll get on to Arsenal versus Manchester City, but it's not a game that Manchester City want to be going into without these players and having dried up a little bit in the attack. I think Haaland only had 1 shot at Wolves, and history shows if he only has 1 shot, then they don't tend to do very well. That happened when they lost to Tottenham. That happened when they lost to Brentford last season. So I think that was probably the most interesting result. I mean, obviously you mentioned Manchester United with them. I mean, I didn't see the whole game, I must say, but I mean, it sort of just feels like more of the same with United. You're just never really sure what you're going to get. And, they've got a lot of injuries and stuff like that. But, as I say, you're not really sure what you're going to get. And that's playing on my mind ahead of this week as well. But we'll get onto that.
We'll dip into some of the teams and your thoughts on them as we make our picks in our feature 5. We'll go rapid fire for the final 5 games of the weekend. Keep in mind an international weekend or window is ahead of us as well. Just to show you some of the shock results this week and some of the numbers where things closed on Pinnacle. Palace to win at Old Trafford closed at plus 496. That's an implied win probability of just 16.8. Wolves closed at a whopping plus 761 and 11.6 implied probability. Luton Town to beat Everton. Remember, Everton was coming off a Carabao Cup win. It looked like they'd kind of turned the corner. Not so much. They closed at plus 470, a 17.5% win probability. Spurs closed at plus 196. Chelsea to win closed at plus 122, a 45% implied probability, and they ended up scoring 2 goals in the process there. We'll get to some of the totals when it comes to the shocking Brighton performance against Villa, what that might mean more in terms of the Manchester clubs and all of that in due course. I just wonder if you look at the table, and Jake and I out of the gate this season, we're kind of debating about how we felt this season would go. And Jake thought that, non-World Cup year, the cream would rise to the top, the big clubs would be the ones that were fighting it out, and there'd be much more separation between them and the rest of the pack. So far through 7 weeks, that isn't necessarily how it's been working out. Yes, City still lead the table, edging out Spurs and Arsenal and Liverpool at this time, but Aston Villa and Brighton have put themselves right in the mix, with West Ham and Newcastle not far behind either. Is there something that stands out to you about the way that this season's played out thus far, Andrew, whether it be in terms of performance or trends that you're seeing across the board?
Yeah, I think I was of sort of similar mind to Jake. I was expecting a bit of a reset and the bigger teams taking charge again. I mean, it certainly was sort of expecting Tottenham and Liverpool to improve on last season, and they have done. I must admit, I did also think that Chelsea would improve more quickly than they have. I mean, assuming that they will, but I thought they could be in the mix for the top 4, but that's obviously looking pretty unlikely at this stage. And Manchester United, again, I wasn't expecting them to fall away particularly, but as we say, you just don't know quite what you're going to get from them. I mean, with regards to Aston Villa and Brighton, you look at them and you think, well, they were very good last season. It isn't that much of a surprise that they are up there again. You always have to wonder with the slightly smaller clubs, can they last the distance? I think Brighton have the process to suggest that they can. I think they were 3rd best on expected goals last season, if I remember rightly. They were certainly up there. So it isn't a surprise that they are continuing to do well. I suppose Newcastle are a slightly random factor in that they were a top 4 side last season when they weren't expected to be, and obviously now they're sort of having to deal with Champions League football as well. Obviously, after a sticky start, they've won their last 3 in the league. I think they're probably going to have a similar season to last year in that they will beat most of the teams you would expect them to beat, possibly struggle against some of the top sides once again. But I mean, as we look now, I mean, the top 4 of Manchester City, Tottenham, Arsenal and Liverpool, I don't think anyone would be too surprised if that was the top 4 at the end of the season, possibly a different order from what they're in now. But I think they're all looking very capable of lasting the distance and taking those top 4 spots, even at this early stage.
City, obviously, with the setback last week. In terms of the future markets on Pinnacle, City still the favorite, odds on at minus 195. Then you have Arsenal and Liverpool at plus 550. I believe I locked in a Liverpool to win the title preseason. I think it was around plus 800. I'll look that up and I'll make sure I deliver what that was. So the odds have dropped to a certain degree. Spurs have now come into the picture at plus 1500. Is City still the team to beat in your eyes, Andrew? Nothing's changed on that front?
I mean, I think they have to be based on their record, really. And obviously, De Bruyne is going to be out for a little while longer. Whilst Rodri is a huge miss this weekend, he will be back soon enough. So, yeah, you have to have them as the favourites. There's no way around that. I mean, I don't think they're infallible, as Wolves have proven. But it's also the thing of, well, Manchester City just won't drop that many points. Can Arsenal or Liverpool or at a push Tottenham? I don't think so, but next in line, can they go on such a long winning run when Manchester City sort of routinely win 13, 14, 15 games in a row in the second half of the season? And if De Bruyne's coming back having had a rest, you've got to think there's a chance City could do something like that again. So I think maybe Arsenal, maybe Liverpool can go close, but I still wouldn't be looking beyond City for the title at the moment, even though they're obviously having a little bit of a wobble. And we're saying that's just one game they haven't won this season.
It's good to present those numbers now because this weekend at the Emirates, Arsenal, Manchester City, depending on what plays out, those numbers can certainly change. You can find them on Pinnacle, 25 years of Pinnacle, and unquestionably the best numbers on the market. You were just also mentioning those teams that are kind of competing near the top. Another similar trend between Brighton and Aston Villa. All these teams playing European football now, especially at this early stage of the season. The fixture list is building. We'll see what kind of knock-on effect or what effect at all it could have on some of these clubs that aren't necessarily accustomed to doing that. And on the flip side of the coin, probably no coincidence, Spurs have been so strong to start the season, not having European football to play and being already knocked out of the Carabao Cup. Shall we get into it? The feature 5 this week here, the top 5 games in our eyes for the weekend ahead, and then we'll go rapid fire and we'll share our best bets and our favorite plays along the way as well. To Old Trafford we go. Unfortunately for us Manchester United supporters, it's been a place of misery, a theater of nightmares in recent weeks, as it's been another disastrous week for Manchester United ahead of their fixture against Brentford on the weekend. It's a 3 p.m. Saturday game featuring the 10th place team facing the 14th place Brentford. Back-to-back home losses for Manchester United. It looked like their schedule was lightening up and they could go on a run here. Not so much. A 1-0 loss to Palace, 3-2 to Galatasaray after holding a 2-1 lead in that game. 3 home losses out of their last 4. 6 losses from 10 overall in all competitions to start the season for Erik ten Hag's side. In the Premier League, it's been a case of failure to fire or failure to launch, however you want to call it. Only 7 goals in 7 games played, and they're 12th in expected goals, courtesy of Understat so far. Although their games have gone over the total of 2.5 in 6 out of 8. This run of form, as I said, Brentford at home, then they play Sheffield United away after the international window, and Copenhagen at home. Like, now these need to be framed as must-wins for Manchester United before they play Manchester City at home at the end of the month. So, a nice little run of games, potentially, but then City at the end of October. Still no left back in the side. Shaw, Malacia, Reguilon remains out, although Sergio Reguilon, depends on where you read, could be close to returning. Lisandro Martinez taking completely away that entire side of the left side of defense. They're all out. Højlund's coming off a really impressive brace against Galatasaray, and Antony's back to the team as well. As for Brentford, they're coming off a 1-1 draw at Forest, but they were a man up for the 56th minute and were unable to come away with a full 3 points. 7 points on the season, but their expected point total, courtesy of Understat, is 11.33. The injuries are a concern. Rico Henry, Shada, Me, Damsgaard, among the big injuries in the team. They're 8th in expected goals overall, as well as expected goals against in the Premier League. No outright win in 7 in all competitions. They did beat Newport County on pens in the Carabao Cup, but overall no clean sheet in 7. Both teams' scores played in 5 of 7 and under 2.5 in 5 of 7. Head-to-head at Old Trafford, United beat them 1-0 after they were embarrassed away 4-0 in their second game of the season and their second game under Erik ten Hag. These two teams have gone over 2.5 in 4 of their last 5. So how do you prognosticate Manchester United right now? Because Brentford, their game model, it's impressive, but they're even down some really key players, not to mention Ivan Toney still not playing in this team. So how do you look at this game this weekend? Is there a play here to make, Andrew?
I'm struggling to find one, to be honest, just because it's tough to call which way it's going to go. I mean, you mentioned Toney there. I think Brentford have dealt with his absence reasonably well. But the loss of Rico Henry, I think, is a really bad one for them. I mean, maybe not a superstar player, but pretty important in how they play and stuff like that. And I think, as you mentioned there, I mean, their performances, at least statistically, have been better than their results. I mean, you look at their games against Tottenham, Palace, Bournemouth, Forest. They were all draws that really they should have probably won, at least based on the expected goal numbers. And then, it's such a contrast, really, this game, because you've got Brentford, who are so sort of set in how they want to play and what they want to do and what their aims are and these sorts of things. And then you've got United, a lot of the time, from what I see, you don't really know what they're trying to do or how they're going to do it and how they're going to play and who they're going to beat and things like this. I mean, you mentioned Højlund. I thought he was good from the bits I saw against Galatasaray. Obviously scored the goals and stuff like that. But, I mean, the things going on behind him, I mean, some of those goals yesterday, as we record this from Galatasaray, I mean, obviously the penalty was missed, but then the goal that was scored for the winner. I mean, you look at that and you sort of think, yeah, maybe Brentford could take advantage of that. I think I'm pretty confident United will win, but I just don't trust them at a price currently showing at minus 141 for the victory. I mean, Brentford at plus 380 is actually quite tempting, possibly on the handicap. Brentford plus 0.75 goals at plus 101. But I'm just so uncertain of what's going to happen in this. I think it's a no play. Sorry to sort of cop out on the first game we talk about, but I mean, you obviously follow United closely. You know better than me, but I just don't know what to expect from them. And Brentford are struggling to turn their decent performances into victories. So yeah, as I say, I'm not really sure which way to go on this.
It's true. If you're backing Manchester United this weekend, it's more based upon hope rather than what you've seen or what the numbers are telling you. They did look better against Galatasaray from an attacking perspective, but their two most key players from in attacking areas are both playing really poorly. They're both out of form. It doesn't mean they're bad players. They're just out of form in Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford. Neither of them, if either one of them, Andrew, had played how they can and how they've shown and how they should, then I think they'd be in a much different spot right now. It's just in the attacking third, it's just not creating anywhere near enough chances. And then you kind of heap on the issues across the back line with the injuries. Aaron Wan-Bissaka out, Martinez out, Shaw out. That's three of your four preferred defenders. And Rafael Varane certainly not fully fit right now as well. And the fact that you don't have that left back, I think that Rashford misses Luke Shaw creating space for him, overlapping, getting forward in attack. And Amrabat is completely playing out of position right now. So it doesn't look good from that perspective. I cannot touch the total in this game because I'm not sure if it's going to be like they were a couple weeks ago when you just knew they had to rein it in just a little bit, and they came away with a hard-fought clean sheet. Who was that against? I'm just blanking out right now. But it was a game where they had to just basically play a little bit more defensive. They did against a lesser side, and they were managed to come away with the victory. I'm not touching the total because I think it can go in any direction, but I just look at this game, another home game for Manchester United, increased importance in this game of just coming away with a result. They just need a result some way, somehow. These are big players that generally rise to the top. I don't think it's rotten to the core. I think it's being exaggerated. I just think it's a team that's dealing with a lot of issues and players out of form right now. With that being said, these Brighton injuries and issues, they're significant, and I think that it could really hurt this team over the short term. So I'm going to back United on the handicap at minus 0.75, and that plays at Pinnacle at minus 112. If United win by a goal, it's a half win for your play. If they win by 2 goals, it's an outright. They could win this game 2-0. They could win this game 2-1. It could be 3. I have no idea what the score is looking like. I'm just backing United and some of their really big players to come out and perform in this game. It's a must-win, Andrew. There's no other way that I can look at this. So I'll back them at home to come away with something here.
No, that makes a lot of sense. As you say, this is a good opportunity for them because as much as we can praise Brentford for a lot of their performances, they are struggling. They don't have the results behind them. So, yeah, this is an opportunity for United. I'm just not sure they're going to take it necessarily. Has Jake sent in any plays or predictions or anything?
He has. He doesn't have one for this game. So a no play from Jake Osgathorpe on this game. It was Burnley, the 1-0 away win. Then they beat Crystal Palace 3-0 at home. And maybe they're just not that good defensively. Onana's been making mistakes. It hasn't looked right. Wisa, scares me, and Mbamo have both played very well up top. But I don't know. I just look at this Brentford team. I think they might have to go to Old Trafford, play a different way. They shouldn't have any fear. We'll see how it plays out. I'm backing United on the handicap in this game and keeping my fingers and toes and everything else crossed on this one. Let's go to the Black Country Derby. It's 15th place Wolves taking on 5th place Aston Villa. Wolves with the upset of the season thus far. They beat City 2-1. It held City to an XG Expected goals against of under 1. The City's XG, I should say, was under 1 in that game. And Andrew, you said it. No big chances for Man City created in that game as well. What's such a surprise is that this Wolves victory over the reigning champions came after a loss to Ipswich Town in the Carabao Cup, and they drew Luton Town as well before that, and no wins in 4 coming into this fixture. Still, Wolves haven't had a clean sheet in 5. They've got over the total of 2.5 in 5 of 6, as Gary O'Neill bringing something different to this Wolves side. Both teams' scores played in 5 of 5. Wolves have actually been first to score in 6 of their last 7 games. However, they do have the 5th worst expected goals at 8.93 in 7 games played. As for Villa, it was Villa 6, Brighton 1. They smashed Brighton last week. Even though 2 of the 3 goals in the first half, I have to say, were fortunate decisions going their way or going against Brighton, however you want to phrase it. But there's no underselling another very good performance. They did score 6 goals, but their XG in that game was 1.91, so they took full advantage of what was given to them. Ollie Watkins opened his account against Chelsea the week before, scored a hat trick last week. He's on a good run of form. And Jacob Ramsey back in this team, back fit, and he scored as well. They do play in the Conference League at home on Thursday. 15 points, but their expected points, courtesy of Understat, is just 11, which puts them just mid-table in that category. Something to think about. 8 out of 9 overall. They've gone over the 2.5 goal total. Both teams to score in 4 of 5. 18 goals in 7 games is tied for the second most in the Premier League for Villa. They're 9th in XG, however, at 13.5. Diaby and Kamara, as of taping this morning on Wednesday, didn't look like they were training, so we'll put a question mark beside both of those names for both the Conference League game as well as the weekend. But we will see. Head-to-head, a 1-0 win for Wolves at the Molineux last season, 1-1 at Villa Park. Wolves haven't lost to Villa in their last 5. Villa, no clean sheets in 4 against Wolves, and they played to under 2.5 in 5 of 7. Are you a believer in Wolves, Andrew? Can they do it back-to-back weeks against a team where the fixtures are starting to build but are coming off a big win in their own right in Aston Villa?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance Wolves can win this one. I mean, obviously, they beat Man City, as we've been saying, and also their previous home game to that when they played Liverpool, although they lost, I mean, they were a goal up. They really should have gone 2-0 up if Matheus Cunha had actually taken a shot rather than heading the ball against his own stomach, I think he did. So they could easily be coming into this having beaten Liverpool and Manchester City in their last 2 home games. I mean, it wouldn't be a wildly different world if that were the case. I think what you notice when you look at both these teams, they're both running very close to their expected goals. I mean, Wolves have scored 8 goals from 8.1 XG, conceded 13 from 12.6. And the same is true for Villa's defence. The exception is the attack running hot. And as you said, I mean, most of that came, I think, last weekend when they scored 6 from 1.7 XG or whatever the figure was. So while I think Wolves stand a good chance, particularly as we say with Villa playing on Thursday, rather than look at the 1x2, I'm probably thinking goals here. The line is at over 2.75, which you can get at plus 103. I think both teams carry a pretty decent threat. Wolves, particularly when they're at home with Pedro Neto. Neither is the strongest defensively. So while I think Wolves can probably edge it, despite Villa being the favourites, I think the play for me, as I say, is the goals, because I think there should be a few in this one.
All right, you like the goals. Jake doesn't have a play for this game as well. I'm going to keep this very simple here. I'm backing the better side, and I think that's Aston Villa. And I understand that they're playing, understand that on Thursday. I understand that there's questions about Kamara and Diaby, but it looks like Leon Bailey is back fit and available. Jacob Ramsey back in the team. He's such a difference maker in this group. They do have a little bit of depth, and I don't think the Conference League game will be a big concern midweek as well. So Aston Villa to win at a plus number, give me that, because I think that Aston Villa are absolutely legit. Their game model is getting better week in, week out under Unai Emery. He's such an impressive manager for me. So at plus 114, that's just a number I can't turn down. I said it, like, Wolves are capitalizing on the chances that they're being given, but their XG still isn't great. They're still not creating a whole lot. Usually it's against the run of play here. So I think that Villa can go on and win this one outright, and that's what I'm backing in this game. Just the better team at a decent number at plus 114. So, any arguments there? Or shall we move on?
No, as I say, I mean, I think Wolves might have enough to win it, but I mean, I'm not sort of wedded to that. And yeah, as you say, I mean, there's no question Villa are the better team, so it wouldn't be a surprise if they did win. But yeah, I'm not sure enough, so I'm sticking with goals.
Yeah, I'm impressed with Gary O'Neill. I had Wolves as a relegation side to start the season. I'm slowly coming around. I'm not sure if they have the squad depth or the quality. But certainly I do rate the manager, and I think he's doing really well with what he has thus far this season. This game should be an absolute cracker. 2 p.m. on Sunday, 6th place Brighton hosting 4th place Liverpool at the Amex. We're hoping that VAR has its head on straight for this one, because this one has the potential for goals aplenty. Brighton coming off the 6-1 loss to Villa. De Zerbi actually... he came out and took the blame. I guess that's what managers do. But he claims his team is not necessarily ready for the number of fixtures that they're facing. It's an interesting predicament, because you think that there's enough depth in this team and, you know, players that can come in and out for one another, that they could be able to handle it. They do play at Marseille on Thursday as well. That is a big game for a club like Brighton. Then Liverpool at home back-to-back should be an interesting week. Still, they do have 19 goals in 7 Premier League games, and they're 5-0-2 on the season. It's a very good start, despite the embarrassing loss last weekend. They've gone over 2.5 in 8 of 9. Both teams have scored in 9 of 10. Their expected goals is only behind Newcastle and Liverpool on the season. Still no clean sheets. They play wide open at times. And after the international break, it's worthwhile to mention they do play City away and Ajax at home. So this is a very difficult run for them. Liverpool, it's Vargate, losing 2-1 to Spurs. No need to readdress it. No need to replay the match. Just go out and win this weekend against Brighton, and we can move on from it. It was 90 plus 6, a Matip own goal after Jones and Jota were sent off, and obviously the Diaz goal not given. It's their first loss on the season. Still a very good start for Liverpool, and they're playing really well at 5-1-1. Their 6 wins in a row was snapped. They do not have a clean sheet in 5. They played over 2.5 in their last 8 games, and both teams' scorers played in 5 straight as well. Alexander-Arnold is very much back. He came on as a substitute in that game against Spurs on the weekend. They do play Europa League at home on Thursday as well. Gakpo looks to be out as well, alongside the suspended Jones and Jota for this one. Head-to-head, it was 3-3 at Anfield last season. It was a 3-0 Brighton home win in the Premier League, and the goals won in the FA Cup 2-1 last season, as well as Liverpool's season was kind of going down, and Brighton's was really flourishing at the end of the season. Brighton, no losses in 3 against Liverpool. Liverpool, no clean sheet in their last 3, and they've gone over 2.5 in 4 of 5. We're expecting goals. The goal total line as of right now is 3.5 on Pinnacle. Is there a number that could be put out there, Andrew, that you're not going to touch? Because I think when these two teams play, you naturally turn to the goal total. If Liverpool's playing at home, then you're obviously going to back Liverpool at Anfield. So what do you make of the markets and what they have this game down as at present time?
Well, the obvious assumption would be to go for goals. Every Brighton game this season has had both teams scoring over 2.5 goals. Liverpool are joint second in that table. It's happened in 5 of their 7. But when you look at it, that's priced at minus 181 for both teams to score over 2.5. So trying to look for something with a bit more value for that. And with the goal line set at over 3.5, this may be insanity, but I'm actually going to take the under 3.5 at minus 103. And I'm going to explain why. I haven't just pulled that out of the sky, not just because
done. Let's go.
Not just because of the small price for the both teams to score in over 2.5. My thinking is to go on the unders. This is basically Liverpool's only away match after a Europa League game, so it's their toughest game from that perspective. And obviously, with their absentees, Curtis Jones, Cody Gakpo, Diogo Jota, they may struggle to score, or at least score a lot of goals. And if you look at Liverpool's defence, the expected goals, it's basically the same as last season when it was not very good at all. They were allowing 1.34 expected goals against per game. This season, it's 1.33. But the interesting thing there is Liverpool have had 4 red cards this season. And if you look at their defence when they've had, for the time when they've had 11 men on the pitch, they're only allowing 0.87 expected goals per 90 minutes, which is basically title challenging form. So I think because of that, and with Brighton being away in Marseille on Thursday night, as we know, I think there's a chance it'll actually be a low-scoring game. So I think taking the unders 3.5 at minus 103 is the way to go. If you look at the last 4 games at the Amex, between the two teams, I should say, none of them have gone over 3.5 goals. And 3 of the 4 before last season were under 2.5 goals. So I think under 3.5 goals, with Liverpool having a strong defence, as long as they can keep 11 on the pitch, a couple of tired teams, a couple of absentees, things like that, I'm going to take the under. And it's probably going to bite me, but I can see it. So that's my play.
Well done. It's solid rationale. It's decent logic. Jake's looking at things the other way. Jake is playing 2 units on over 3.25 goals at minus 137. So not getting much juice, but heavily investing in there being goals in this game. I just look at the way that Brighton play, and they're wide open at times at the back. And this is the way that De Zerbi wants to play. And I understand playing away from home, but if you're playing Welbeck and Ferguson, you can come back with Pedro and Fati, and there's just so many different players that can rotate this side. And other than James Milner, the former Liverpool man, and then Cisco, who's obviously he's a long-term absentee. They're pretty fit right now. Like they have most of their top players still available. And I'm not buying what De Zerbi's playing here. I think that some of the young players need to learn how to play more regular fixtures, but I think they're certainly capable of that. I have 2 plays, both for a unit in this game. I'm going to go Brighton over their goal total at 1.5 at minus 106. Just because look, Brighton scored 3 against Newcastle at home. I'm not sure if Newcastle's conceded a goal since that time, by the way. But they put 3 past Newcastle. They've scored in every game at home. And their XG is like big in each and every one of these games. I still want to test this Liverpool backline. I think you're right. Oftentimes when you go down a man, the 4 sending offs have certainly had an impact on Liverpool early in the season. But I think that sometimes when you go a man down, you play a little bit more secure. You play a little bit more safe. You're much more aware. I think this game can be a little bit wide open. And I'm going to play it over the total. I'm not going to go Jake's 3.25. I'll just hope that there's 4 goals in this game. Just a full unit at over the total at 3.5 at minus 109, and hope that our head-to-head goes in my direction here, Andrew. It's just, this game could very well end up 2-1. It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever, but sometimes with this Brighton side, especially if they're a little bit leggy coming off the Thursday, it could be a little bit more wide open than usual. They're a regular over team. Liverpool, a regular over team. Let's go the overs. I can't go any. I'm not as brave as you. Let's put it that way. You know Liverpool more than most, and are they capable of setting things up to in a position where they just set up shop and play on the counter against Brighton and put themselves in a position not to concede? Even if they do play on the counter, I still think okay, you have Diaz and Salah and there's still enough players that can do damage against this Brighton side who, again, they play so expansive. Like, their fullbacks are so wide, their center backs are wide. There's those gaps, and I just see Mo Salah just being able to take full advantage of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, quite possibly. I mean, the thing is as well, because the line's so high, it could be, like you say, 2-1. My bet would be fine, or it could be, 3-0 Liverpool if they have a good day out and Brighton aren't at it after their game in Marseille. I just think the line is so high in light of the Liverpool's decent defence this season. Again, with 11 men has to be emphasised. That I think it's worth a try. I think we'll wait and see. I mean, I certainly wouldn't be saying definitely don't back the overs because it's very common for these teams to have a lot of goals in their games. But I'm just don't know. Something tells me this one's going low. We'll see.
I know that Arsenal City. I mean, that's the match of the weekend, but it's this game is the one that I've circled, and I just have to see the way that it plays out. Brighton and Liverpool from the Amex. Another really good game. 7th place West Ham taking on 8th place Newcastle, also Sunday at 2 p.m. West Ham coming off a 2-0 victory over Sheffield United, a 3.2 XG. Jared Bowen is on spectacular form, scored again. He has 5 goals and an assist in 7 Premier League games already. That's back-to-back clean sheets. They did have one, and I'm talking all competition, did have one against Lincoln City as well in the Carabao Cup. But they didn't keep a clean sheet in their 10 in all competitions dating back to last season before that. They played to over 2.5 in 6 of 8. Both teams to score in 7 of 9. First to score in 7 of 9 in all competitions. Their expected goals against is 3rd worst in the Premier League, which is a bit of a surprise at 15.72, but they've only conceded 10 goals thus far. They play in the Europa League on Thursday in Germany at Freiburg. Jared Bowen should be okay. He took a bit of a knock to his foot. Ankle, might not play Thursday, but sounds like he'll be okay for the Newcastle fixture. As for Newcastle, also coming off a 2-0 win, came over Burnley, an XG over 3 in that game as well. A great goal by Miguel Almiron, and Isak scored on a penalty. They've now won 3 in a row, unbeaten in 5, heading into Wednesday's massive home fixture at St. James's Park against PSG in the Champions League. 5 clean sheets in a row heading into that game as well. After a 1-0 win over City in the Carabao Cup, we should mention that as well the previous midweek. They played to under 2.5 in 4 of 5. They do have the second most goals now in the Premier League with 18, the best expected goals, and the second best expected goals against. However, some injuries. Callum Wilson missed back-to-back games with hamstring tightness. He's a question mark. Joe Linton came off 4 minutes after coming on the weekend with a hamstring issue. Late fitness checks on both of them. Sven Botman remains out. And the big one, Anthony Gordon suspended for this upcoming game as well. 5 yellow cards already. Barnes and Willock more longer-term absentees. Head-to-head, it was West Ham 1, Newcastle 5 in this fixture last season. Although they played to a 1-1 draw, West Ham somehow got there last season at St. James's Park. West Ham no clean sheet in this fixture in 9. Newcastle no clean sheet in 5. Both teams' scorers played in 5 of 5. I'm looking at that PSG game Wednesday, Andrew, and I can't get it out of my head because it's going to be emotional. It's a clear focus for this club. How do they respond against a good West Ham side going away from home on the weekend?
Yeah, it's hard to know, isn't it? It's a shame we're not recording this after that PSG game in a way, because I think we'll learn quite a lot about Newcastle. As you say, it's an enormous occasion for them, and if they win, I mean, their confidence will be sky high if they can beat PSG tonight as we record this. But obviously, we don't yet know what's going to happen there. I mean, if you look at the data for this season, as limited as it is at this point, it suggests that backing Newcastle to win in this one is basically should be the play of the week. At plus 115 looks very good value because they're just the stronger team. And when you look at last season for a bit more of a bigger sample, I mean, they were unbeaten on the road against teams who finished below 8th. West Ham have improved since last season, but I don't think we'd be too surprised if they finished below 8th. And similarly, West Ham had 1 home win against teams that finished in the top 9. And obviously Newcastle should be in that group again this season. Quite strange history between the teams. I was having a look. The last 6 times they've played in London, the games have either had exactly 2 goals or at least 5. There's been 3 examples of each. So I'm sort of thinking it might be an under 2.75 goals kind of game at minus 104. But I think I'm willing to go for a Newcastle win at plus 115. As I say, the data says they should be much shorter price than that. And obviously, we'll see what happens tonight. But if they get a decent result tonight, then they can head into this in good spirits. And I think they're capable of winning, maybe not 5-1 like it was last season, but doing enough to get the win.
All right. Jake likes under 2.75 goals, a full unit at minus 104. I'm kind of following his mindset on this one, not completely going against you, but my play will be contradictory here. That Newcastle PSG game with a team that's a little bit depleted. I know Tonali's been dealing with some issues as well. Makes me a little bit nervous what that emotional toll will take midweek. and what it will look like coming out on the weekend. And I don't think that West Ham's a team. I think they're good enough that if you go there and you're not fully fit or focused or whatever you want to call it, that they can come away with something. I do think that this game is going to be tight. You're right, it could very well go in Newcastle's favor, but if you're going to give me plus money, West Ham on the handicap at plus 0.25, I'm going to take it. So if it's a draw, it's a half win for West Ham, backing the home side in this game. Obviously, if they lose, you lose as well. So maybe I'm focused too much on this. I think this is a completely new experience for Newcastle. I don't think they were great last weekend. They were gifted that pen against Burnley. I had Burnley on the plus 1.5 handicap. Newcastle got the better of me in that game. I'm still angry about it today, but let's hope that backing the home side in West Ham in this one will pay off on the handicap. A full unit play, plus 0.25 at plus 104. Anything else on this? Am I obsessing too much about what it might take midweek at home against PSG? It's one of those spots based on context I'm making the West Ham play. Because I agree with you, I think the Newcastle's a better side. The injuries in that game have just kind of taken me off backing them in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, obviously, it's nowhere near the same sort of sense of playing PSG, but West Ham are away at Freiburg on Thursday night, so Newcastle have an extra day of rest. Tough away game for West Ham, that could factor into it as well. But as I said, we'll probably know a lot more this time tomorrow when the PSG game has happened, and we'll see what state they're in after that, I guess.
And Jared Bowen, I trust, so let's keep that going. Let's dig into the fixture of the weekend. It's third place Arsenal taking on top of the table Manchester City. The game goes 4:30 local time on Sunday afternoon. Arsenal, busy week with good and bad news. They smashed Bournemouth 4-0 away on the weekend with a 4.07 expected goals. They beat Brentford away 1-0 in the Carabao Cup before that. But, and this is where things take a turn for the worse, lost 2-1 at Lens in the Champions League and lost Saka in the process. And it doesn't look good according to Mikel Arteta. We'll see what his status is, both for the short and long term, in due time. No losses in the Premier League for Arsenal, 5-2-0. They only conceded 6 goals, which is second best, and they're the third best expected goals against in the Premier League. They've gone over 2.5 in 4 of 5 and been the first to score in 6 in a row. Martinelli is close to returning. We'll see if this weekend is too soon or whether he can get back into the side. Leandro Trossard has been playing some decent football in his absence. As for Man City, the shock 2-1 loss at Wolves last weekend, 23 shots, 8 on target, but an XG less than 1. Alvarez with the goal. They certainly missed Rodri, didn't they? And they're going to miss him again after he plays in the Champions League at Leipzig midweek. He's going to go back to Spain and just hang out for a while. So no Rodri again this weekend. Vardiel didn't play last weekend as well for Manchester City. Back-to-back losses, both in the Carabao Cup to Newcastle, then Wolves, after 8 wins in a row. At Arsenal, this is a team that's coming into it that's gone over 2.5 of 5 of 7. Both teams are scoring 5 of 7, but somehow City being the first to concede in 4 of 5, which is downright bizarre. They have the best expected goals against in the Premier League at 5.09, and they're still the best team in the division, and in terms of expected points as well. Silva and Stones look to be just about back, ready to return for the City side, which makes them that much better of a team in due course. Head-to-head, 3-1. City won at the Emirates last season, 4-1 at home. A home win for City as well, but Arsenal won the Community Shield in penalties after they played to a 1-1 result after 90 minutes. Arsenal no clean sheet in 9 against City. Both teams to score has played in 4 of 5. A big spot for Arsenal, Andrew. They can right the wrongs of last season, but this Saka injury looming, it really kind of dampens the expectation a little bit coming into this game. We're not sure how City fared in the Champions League midweek, but City are the favorite to go on and win this game. What do you make of the markets here? Depending on who you back, I mean, there's some pretty good numbers that are available on Pinnacle. Which one are you backing, if any?
Well, I think this is a game I've got to go for both teams to score an over 2.5 goals because that's available at plus 122 at the moment. I mean, that has been the outcome in 17 of Arsenal's 23 home league games since the start of last season. So, it's occurred in 75% of their matches, which obviously doesn't mean it's going to happen here automatically, but that's a pretty good chance to get a plus 122 price. I mean, if you look at the XG data, obviously that suggests Man City should win. If you look at last season, this season, everything says that Manchester City is a value play at plus 149 to win. But of course, the data doesn't know about the absences, and that's the big thing here. I mean, mentioned briefly earlier the importance of Rodri. I mean, there's a metric on FB Ref which is plus or minus. It looks at how a team's expected goals and actual goals are when a player plays and then when they're not playing, and what the difference is between the two. And obviously, football's too complex. You can't sort of assign everything to a player, but the fact remains that in terms of this plus or minus, a team being better when a person plays or doesn't, Rodri has been in the top 10 players in the Premier League for 4 of the last 5 seasons for this. And even Kevin De Bruyne, as great as he is not been in the top 10 as often as Rodri. Like, Manchester City are just a markedly better team when he plays, and they're an incredibly good team anyway. So his absence undoubtedly gives Arsenal more of a chance than they would normally have had. But then, as you say, it's looking like, Saka's going to be missing for them. So it makes the game itself, the 1x2, very difficult to call. So I'm just going to stick with sort of goals. Both teams score over 2.5 at plus 122, because I think both teams will score, and then it only takes one more and you're in business. So I still favour City, but I think that's the way to go.
Arsenal have been very good at home. We should add in recent vintage. The Saka one for me, it's a tough one. And City are too good to continue to lose. By the way, Jake likes 1 unit over 2.5 goals at minus 116. I'm going to actually stay away from the total here and make a play. It's going to be the good old just back the better team in this one. And City on the handicap is still coming in at a plus number. At plus 114, City at minus 0.25. If it ends in a draw, it's a half loss. So a little bit of insurance for your bet. I'm going to make a full unit play on this. I think that the way to cover off Rodri's absence is if Stones comes back, plays a few minutes against Leipzig, and we'll see if he does that Wednesday. And he's that player that's so adaptable, can step up from the back 4 and just kind of sit there as kind of that holding midfielder, that shield. But more important than the shield, just to start the build. Like, his distribution is what makes him so good when he steps up and plays in that kind of role. So I think the tactics, Pep might make a little bit of a shift heading into this one, which might ask some different questions of Arsenal. I think the 4 goals away at Bournemouth, I think it flattered Arsenal, to be honest with you. 2 of the goals were pens in that game, and they're relatively soft for me. They were pens, certainly, but just soft. And I just think that City are the better side. And when the pushes come to shove in the Premier League, City have got the better of Arsenal. It's this protege versus master. Well, Pep is still the master here. And at plus 114 with the little insurance baked in, I like the City play at minus 0.25 at plus 114. Just, if we all think that City are going to go on and win the title, they certainly don't lose a game like this, do they? I just can't envision a case where they go on and lose this game, Andrew. So that's kind of part of what's, dictating my play in this one.
No, absolutely. I mean, lengthy streaks of form or whatever have to end eventually. But I think Manchester City have won the last 15 league meetings, something like that. So obviously they're not going. Eventually there'll come a time where they don't. But they've just been so dominant against Arsenal, even better versions of Arsenal, that you have to go with them. And I meant to say earlier when we were talking about last week, and I forgot. Yeah, Arsenal did score 4 goals, but as you say, 2 of them were penalties. I had a look. Only 7 teams in the Premier League got more than 2 away penalties in the whole of last season, and Arsenal got 2 in one game. And nobody got more than 4, in the whole season away from home, and Arsenal got 2 in one game. So obviously that did flatter them a bit. So I think we all think City probably, but I'm going to take the goals.
Brilliant. Let's go rapid fire for the rest. 17th place Luton Town taking on second place Spurs. Do you have a play in this game?
Not massively. As I mentioned earlier, I think Tottenham weren't actually that great against Liverpool, even though they got the job done in the end. I mean, they've conceded 2 goals against likely bottom half sides in Brentford and Burnley on the road. So I was maybe thinking both teams to score and Tottenham to win, which was plus 189 when I looked this morning. But I don't really have a strong play. I'm not really sure how. I mean, I think Tottenham will win, obviously, but the prices aren't really too enticing.
Luton Town played on Tuesday against Burnley. Heartbreak for them. They equalized in the 84th and then conceded the 85th to Burnley. They lost that game at home. Luton Town's been scoring, but I don't think they score in this game. I think it's going to be a little bit of a market correction because I just don't see there being a whole lot of attacking prowess in this game. It's a good game for Spurs to come out and show that they can defend a little bit. I think that they have more than enough in attack. It's at the back. I don't think they're being poor. They just conceded an odd goal. So my bet is both teams to score no and Spurs to win at plus 174. I think Spurs can go there. They've had a couple days off, a couple days more off than Luton Town have. Spurs at that kind of number to come away with a clean sheet and a win in this game, I think it's a number that I can back. A full unit play there. 13th place Fulham against 20th place Sheffield United. I should say I have no bet for this game, so the floor is yours, Andrew.
I was actually tempted by Sheffield United on the handicap plus 0.75 at plus 108 because Fulham recently played Luton at home, and although they won the game 1-0, Luton actually edged the expected goals by 0.1. It's strange season in a way from Fulham because they're joint second bottom in the both teams to score and over 2.5 goals table, which, as we know, or regular listeners will know as well. I mean, regular play last season was Fulham and the overs and stuff like that, but it hasn't really happened. But with Sheffield United, as I say, they led in stoppage time at Spurs. They won both meetings of these teams to 0 a couple of years ago. They've been more competitive on the road than they have at home. So I am tempted by them on the handicap, as I say, plus 0.75 goals at plus 108, because I don't think Fulham are that good. Problem being, Sheffield United aren't that good either. But that's what I'm considering, but I'm not sort of wedded to it.
I don't trust either. Jake is actually making a 1.5 unit play on the under 2.5 in this game at minus 107. I'm assuming that's because Fulham are in the bottom 4 in expected goals and Sheffield United second worst in that category as well. So he likes the under in this game. And I should mention for the Luton Town Spurs, Jake is making a full unit play. Spurs, is it minus 1.25 on the Asian handicap at plus 105. So he's backing Spurs to win this one with relative ease as well. Burnley, 18th place. They're facing 11th place Chelsea coming off a win and a game where they actually scored not 1 but 2 goals. Do Chelsea keep it rolling at Turf Moor?
Well, it's sort of similar to what we were saying about Manchester United. You just don't really know what you're going to get from Chelsea. I mean, what I will say is they've won all 3 of their away games on the expected goals, at least, all of them by exactly 0.6 XG. Burnley have lost all their 4 home games, but they have been sort of growing in competitiveness with each game. The margins have been getting narrower. Possibly should have got something against Manchester United. I'm not sure what you think about that, but obviously there wasn't too much for either team in that game. But I mean, I think my general rule at the moment is just to avoid Chelsea because you can't predict them very easily at all. The one that I was sort of looking at under 2.75 goals at minus 118. Chelsea scored twice in a minute the other night against Fulham, but clearly they're very erratic in front of goals. So it wouldn't surprise me if this was something like 2-0 Chelsea and they got the job done. So if I was going anything, probably take the unders.
No play for Jake. I like Chelsea to win to 0 at plus 202. It's an Andrew Beasley special here because I think that I'm piling on and trying to get a little bit of a better number. Chelsea and Manchester City are the only two teams this season with data provided by Understat to win the expected goals battle in every game. So although Chilwell's out and Reece James is suspended again this weekend, they are built on a solid back line. They've gone under 2.5 total in 5 of their last 5. Like, defensively is not the problem. Their goalkeeper's not the problem. It's their inability at times to score goals. Jackson comes back in, and Chelsea don't lose to Burnley. Like, Burnley don't have a clean sheet against Chelsea in their last 17 games. And Chelsea haven't lost to Burnley in 9. So based on all that, Chelsea to 0, coming away with a 1-0 hard-fought victory at Turf Moor. That's my bet at plus 202. And let's hope that that plays out. Everton, 16th place, taking on 19th place Bournemouth. Do you have a play in this game?
Not particularly. I was maybe looking at the over 2.5 goals, which was minus 116 when I looked earlier. But again, you don't really know what to expect from Everton. I mean, they've had 7.2 expected goals at home this season and they've scored once. Obviously, Bournemouth have been struggling more than I think a lot of people thought they would. I think Andoni Iraola hasn't sort of got them going quite as much as people probably assumed that he would. So yeah, I'm not really sure where to go with this. If anything, perhaps the overs on the goals, because Everton are due to score several goals against somebody, and it could easily be Bournemouth. But no, I mean, I don't have too strong a feeling for this game.
That's my play, over 2.5 at minus 118. This is strictly on the data because, as you alluded to, Andrew, Everton are 7th in expected goals at 14.4, yet they've only scored 6. That's a difference of 8.4. So based on the data, they're unlucky in front of goal and just haven't been rewarded for some of the work that they're actually putting in. And against head-to-head against Bournemouth, they've got over 2.5 goals in 8 out of their last 10 meetings. So no Tyler Adams, a top defensive midfielder, he's out again for Bournemouth. So I think there could be some goals in this game, potentially both ways, as Everton continue to leak really cheap goals in the back. No clean sheet in 9. So let's go over 2.5 at minus 118. I actually really like that bet this weekend. And finally, ninth place Crystal Palace taking on 12th place Nottingham Forest. Bring us home. What do you have here, Andrew?
I'm going to take Forest on the handicap for this one, plus 0.25 at minus 102. I love, with Crystal Palace and the Roy Hodgson algorithm, you look at their results this season, 1 loss drawn, and then 1 last week. So they're obviously going to lose. That's, you can't argue with that as science. But in all seriousness, when you look at Forest on the road this season, they edged the expected goals at Arsenal. They went 2-0 up at United. All right, they lost in the end, but obviously they started well. They won at Chelsea. They only lost 2-0 at Manchester City, having lost 6-0, I think it was the season before. There was the Rodri red card factor in that. But, they've been doing reasonably well away from home in far tougher games than against Crystal Palace. So I think, minus 102 on the handicap, up plus 25. I'll have a unit on that, I think.
Jake likes a full unit on Palace at minus 0.25 on the Asian handicap at minus 119. But Andrew, I have the exact same play as you for a full unit. Forest at plus 2.5 at minus 102. Look, this injury to Eze, he's going to be out for weeks with a hamstring injury. No Eze, no Elise. They're without their 2 best players. And Edouard didn't play last weekend as well. He's missed some games. Is he fit enough to come in? And how much can he play? I do have some questions about Palace and the way they played against Manchester United. Although it was admirable, they only had 22% possession and 66% pass completion. They really held on and they defended for dear life. It's a different situation, I think, playing at home. And Forest has had good recent success against Palace as well. They haven't lost in their last 6 games. So I think that you and I are on the right side of the equation here. Some injuries to Palace. Forest's form hasn't been bad. They've been playing much more competitive football this season. And if it ends in a draw, it's a half win. I'll still take it at near even money. So so we end with back-to-back games that we're seeing the world through similar lenses. Do you have a favorite play or a best bet this week, Andrew?
Let me just remind myself what's going on. Well, it's not going to be that Brighton Liverpool unders, is it? I think possibly both teams to score and over 2.5 in the Arsenal Man City game does look good at that price because, as we say, it happens most weeks when Arsenal play at home, and obviously the goal threat on both sides is impressive. So yeah, I think that's probably my play of the week.
I'm drinking the Big Ange Kool-Aid with Spurs. Both teams to score no. Spurs win at plus 174 against Luton Town. As you know, you can find all of the best in-market lines on Pinnacle. Our data is provided by Understat as well. If you want to see some of the numbers that we speak about on a regular basis as well. Thanks for stepping up and stepping in for this podcast today, Andrew. Where can people follow along with your regular plays and impeccable insight when it comes to the Premier League?
Well, I'm at Base Tune to Red on Twitter, so anything I write, all the tips and everything gets shared on there. So if people follow me there, they can see what I've been writing about and what I've been tipping.
At Gareth Wheeler is where you can find me, and all of our plays each and every week are posted at Pinnacle. Follow along and share your plays as well across our social channels. Andrew, top man, enjoy the game week, enjoy the international window as well, and we'll do this again soon. Thank you.
You're welcome. Always happy to step in when Jake's got enough money from his bets to pay for another holiday, you know?
Yes, he's been tailing us. That's how he gets it. So Jake will be back after the international window, and so will we. On behalf of everyone at Pinnacle, I am Gareth Wheeler. Good luck with your bets this week, and we'll see you next time.